My name is Conall Lavery. I'm the founder and CEO of Waya. So we help developers and companies to build electronics and ship them. So we have a cloud platform that makes it easy for developers to build everything from thermostats to facial recognition cameras within a matter of minutes instead of spending months writing code. Last summer then we brought out our professional services where we're working with large companies like Vodafone and Alltech, helping them to build out their products of the future. And speaking of the future, this month we are releasing our own electronics that is a bit like Lego for IoT, which we've got on at our stand here today, that allows anyone who's just a kid learning to code all the way up to a seasoned programmer to build their own things within just a few moments. So that's a little bit about us.
Hi everybody, my name is Anita Finnegan and I'm the CEO of Leah. So Leah is a spin-out company from an Irish university, Dundalk Institute of Technology. Our platform and our technology, while it's not an IoT technology, it serves the IoT industry, specifically in the medical device industry. So the work that we have done in developing our platform provides a solution to medical device manufacturers of connected medical devices to expertly and in an informed fashion risk assess their products. What the platform does, and the platform of Select Evidence, allows manufacturers to ingest a software bill of materials into our product. Our product identifies vulnerabilities associated with the device, and then it alerts manufacturers to the mitigations and the security controls that they need to implement to mitigate any risks associated with their devices. And it does this in a continuous fashion, so some of the regulatory changes in the industry are seeing the need for medical device manufacturers to have to do this and do this on a continuous basis. Well, our platform provides that traceability to regulatory bodies like the FDA to demonstrate that they're continuously assessing their devices in an intelligent manner on a 24/7 basis.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mervyn O'Callaghan, and I'm one of the founders of ProVision vehicle cameras. So at ProVision, we are kind of like the next evolution of telematics. So what we do is we take traditional telematics, we layer video footage on top of that. We also then layer things like autonomous driving technology, smart sensors, smart cameras, to provide a cloud-based platform to enable fleet managers, leasing companies, insurance companies access information in real time. So we've worked with a number of the manufacturers. We've rolled out to some of the largest fleets in Ireland, some big rollouts in the UK at the moment. And we have about 4,500 vehicles now that we're actually actively monitoring through our system. We've also then got heavily involved in the regulation side of the business, so we integrate things like compliance and force recognition scheme for operators, all built into the platform as well. So it's basically a one-stop shop for the whole service of your vehicles, monitoring your fleet, monitoring compliance.
Thanks, Mervyn. My name's Gary Leyden. Good morning. I'm Commercial Director at an accelerator in Ireland called NDRC. We're a pre-seed investor, so we're usually the first investor in companies. And we tend to invest at a stage where normally private capital doesn't invest, and our job is to get the ventures to a point where private capital will invest. So it's to validate those opportunities, and we clearly position ourselves as that qualified deal flow for next stage investors. Sure Valley are investors in two of our portfolio companies that are here today, so in Waya and in Telematics, and they're also a limited partner in one of the funds in the regional accelerator in Waterford that we run. So we run 4 accelerators across Ireland, in Dublin, Galway, three accelerators across Ireland, in Dublin, Galway and Waterford, and we also run one out in the Middle East. We've been operating for about 10 years now. The market cap of our portfolio companies now is well in excess of 500 million, and love to talk to anybody who wants to either invest in NDRC or directly into any of our portfolio companies.
Thank you very much, guys. So beginning with some questions. So starting quite high level, I'd love to just obviously hear, and I'm sure the audience would, your opinion on the IoT industry, what's happening, kind of, what actually are the areas of growth that you think are really relevant and you think potential good for investment or change. So I'll start with you, Conall.
Yeah, so the industry's changed quite a bit in the past years. A while ago, we used to just jokingly say IoT actually stands for the Internet of Theories, because a lot of people were talking about it, but no one was really doing things. But now we're seeing massive change in the industry. It is now starting to become a really, really exciting place, and that's because all of the different pieces of the puzzle are actually starting to come together. So things like the software, I happen to know a really good cloud platform. The hardware, there's stuff coming out there too, and also the connectivity. So it's easier than ever to build a fleet of 10 or 100,000 devices, which you couldn't do before. But one of the things that we've noticed is missing is, certainly from the horizontal perspective, which is a bit different than the other companies that are up here, is that no one is really looking from the end-to-end experience as a whole. So people are looking at just the cloud, or they're looking at just the hardware, they're looking at just the connectivity, and that's what we're looking at as we plan to go forward, is how do we put all of those different blocks into one case, and then we're kind of a one-stop shop for any type of IoT product. But it's a lot has changed in the industry over the past few years.
So I can just speak from the healthcare side of things, but the IoT is certainly making a huge impact. IoT is certainly making a huge impact in this industry, and specifically we call it IOMT, Internet of Medical Things. And if you look at the healthcare IoT market, that's expected to grow to about $140 billion by 2021. A segment of that, the IOMT, Internet of Medical Things, is expected to grow at an annual rate of 25% by 2023, and expected to reach a market value of $70 billion. So that's a huge growth area, and it's making such an impact to the healthcare services. In that currently now we know that there are about 3.7 billion users of IoT devices, connected medical devices, and we're expecting to see a huge surge in that between now and 2020, and with the expectation of between 10 and 20 billion. So the impact of that in the healthcare space is literally transforming an industry. It's transforming how we deal with healthcare, the efficiency of operations, the cost of healthcare, and even how healthcare is delivered, so where patients can receive their healthcare, and how doctors and physicians would administer healthcare, how patients are diagnosed. So we're expecting to see a huge shift from what was traditionally a standalone device industry to a more connected industry with IOMT.
Yeah, I think within the transportation industry, telematics has been around for quite a long time, but there hasn't really been a huge amount of innovation. So if you look at a lot of the telematics companies, what they've done is they've developed quite complex reporting structures and reporting modules within their system to try and differentiate. And really, that's become kind of their stumbling block at the moment. And just in the last couple of years, there's been a couple of companies who have now started to look at camera technology, smart sensors, autonomous driving technology, and how you will add that on top of your traditional telematics information. And I think that's what's really driving the industry now. Fleet operators are now seeing that that's far more valuable information, far more practical and far more usable. And also from an insurance perspective, insurance companies can now use that information, especially with video layered on top, to actually, fight against cases and that. Whereas with telematics, it's based on analyzing data and interpreting data, and therefore it's never really a conclusive solution.
Yeah, I suppose we probably see it at a higher level rather than in individual verticals. And I think one of the key things that we've seen change in the last couple of years is, a couple of years ago, if you wanted to launch an IoT business, you had to be good at hardware, you had to be good at connectivity, and you had to be good at the software. And where we're seeing really success now is where really talented AI people or machine learning or data people are leveraging off-the-shelf hardware and partnering with key stakeholders around connectivity. So they're focusing on what they're really, really good at. And we've seen a shift from lots of activity in the enterprise space around pilots, where enterprises are really just trying to get to know and understand the implications of IoT to real commercial traction. And I think the makeup of the founders has changed from technical people who just wanted to connect lots of things to people with deep domain expertise who actually understood how connecting these different devices can impact on the bottom line of their businesses.
Great, thank you. Kind of going into more kind of individual questions. Conall, you've had quite a busy few months with Wire. A lot going on. I think it'd be great for you to kind of tell us a bit more about Wire Studios and the product launch and potentially some of the great use cases that you're working with enterprise with.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it's been pretty busy. So with Wire Studios, just to give you all a bit more perspective on that, that is our professional services arm where we work with corporates and innovation teams, helping them to build out their POCs and prototypes. So the big issue in that industry or in any hardware industry is building that first product is really tough. It typically takes companies between 9 to 12 months to build even a very simple sensor device. We've brought that down to about 6 to 8 weeks. So we do all of the design of the electronics, the casing, the interfaces, everything under the one roof. And that's why we're able to do it so quickly. We aren't reliant on lots of different suppliers. We have all the expertise in-house simply because we're a very design-led company. So some of the use cases that we have there, one we're working on at the moment, which is really exciting, is with a very large agriculture company in the US, where they want to detect whether cows are interacting with vitamin blocks that are placed around a farm. So we're making use of the RFID tags that are already on the cows themselves to see if they are interfacing with and getting the vitamins and the nutrients that they need. And something like that is worth millions to that industry. Just getting that little simple data point. And I just want to make that point as well. The Internet of Things is really made up of these atomic data points, which are then plugged into a central ecosystem, and value is derived from that. So moving on to our own hardware, so that's the board that we will be showing at our stand here today. So we've been working very hard on getting that out the door. Again, we've came up with some new ways and new processes of doing things. Typically, it takes companies about 2 years to get to production. We did it in 3 months, and that was while running the rest of the business as well. So we looked at the way that people build hardware today and figured out a lot of better ways to do it, and we were able to do it in a fraction of the time in comparison to everyone else. And also, we're actually building that hardware in Ireland as well. So it's got made in Ireland on the back of it, or made in the EU, I guess. So that's a really exciting point to make too. Then later in the year, just to help us kind of create that full picture of an end-to-end provider, we will be launching our own connectivity network throughout Europe, which will allow people to come to us, say, can you build me 10,000 devices? We'll do that within a matter of months, and they'll have them all connected up to our whole ecosystem, which then moves us into a monthly and annual recurring revenue model. So that's a little bit of what we've been doing.
Perfect, thank you. And Anita, I think what's super interesting for Leah is wherever regulation is coming into the market around an industry vertical, there's obviously opportunity for an organisation such as Leah to kind of flourish and take advantage of that. So I'd love to understand a bit more kind of how that has really impacted the business and how you see that helping in the future.
Sure. So we discussed the benefits of IoT in healthcare, but with those benefits came some disadvantages in that the healthcare industry just wasn't prepared to take something that was traditionally standalone and put it on a network or give it connectivity. And it became apparent very, in the last few years that we're lagging behind in terms of security controls and features to protect patients that rely on these devices. So a number of years ago, this has all been led from the US, quickly followed by Canada, Asia, and Australia. The US government got involved, and they conducted an inquiry into the FDA's assessment of connected medical devices, and they assessed and concluded that FDA didn't consider patient harm risks to do with cybersecurity. So with that, the industry has gone through a heck of a lot of upheaval over the last few years because of this, in that they now have to, so we've seen some new regulation. Now, for a medical device manufacturer to get a product into the marketplace, they have to provide evidence that they've conducted a cybersecurity risk assessment. That's the easy piece for them. Then they need to actually conduct post-market monitoring, which is very resource heavy. So they need to be able to demonstrate that they're doing this, and they're doing this on a continuous basis to be able to keep their products in the market. So that's why they're pacemakers embedded into a human body or an MRI scanner sitting on a healthcare network. So standards and regulation guidance documents have been, well, they've actually been the core of our business, in that I actually myself authored 2 of the first medical device cybersecurity standards that are recommended by FDA for medical device manufacturers. And that's really the driver and the core to our product. It's ensuring that manufacturers have those processes automatically built into their business programs so they can charter and stand up cybersecurity programs. We do expect to see a lot more change in the industry. So the US government are preparing for 2 parallels. Firstly, allowing medical device manufacturers and FDA to slowly build up the cybersecurity posture of medical devices on an iterative basis. But in the background, they're also preparing for the fact that very soon there could very well be a fatality. And if that happens as a result of a cybersecurity attack, they're going to kick into gear with a very hardcore program for medical device manufacturers. And the issue for this industry is that cybersecurity wasn't a consideration up until a few years ago. Nobody thought anybody would hack a medical device, but we've since realized there's a lot of monetary value in doing that. Patient health records, they're worth 5 to 10 times the value of a credit card record. Particularly the younger the patient, the more valuable the product is. So because of that, cybersecurity subject matter expertise don't live in our domain, and they never have. So that's one of the things that we tried to do with Select Evidence. It's intended to be almost like a consultancy as a service. It's like a cybersecurity consultant working in your organization, informing you of the threats and the vulnerabilities that you need to mitigate and how you need to mitigate them. One of the beauties of the work that I do with ISO, IEC, with the FDA and with other regulatory bodies is that we get to identify what's coming down the line before the industry actually knows about it. And we can coach and educate and obviously tweak our product in line with that, which really it's a trust factor for our customers right now.
And Mervyn, I think when we spoke last week, we discussed a bit around, utilising all of the data, that sometimes a singular IoT kind of sensor solution isn't enough, and that in your case, you're obviously combining a few different technologies to do that. So I'd love to kind of dig a bit deeper into that and understand a bit better.
Yeah, so really, as I said, traditional telematics was very much focused on providing lots of information, very simple information. So your driving behavior, for example, was built around accelerometer data, so harsh speeding, harsh braking, cornering, that type of information, which obviously has a value, and a lot of telematic systems were sold on the basis of fuel consumption and reducing down your overall cost of operational. But from an operator perspective, there's far more information and there's far more detail that they can get from the vehicles. So telematic systems traditionally were not integrated very heavily into the vehicle itself. So we've started working with some of the manufacturers to be able to take direct information from the vehicles. That gives us a huge opportunity in the future. So at the moment, we have to install some of our own hardware. That gives us the ability to be able to take direct feeds from the vehicles. So for example, a lot of vehicles now will be coming with ADAS, which is Advanced Driver Assistance Systems. We have that technology and we install that into commercial fleet. But in the future, our view would be that we could read that directly from the vehicle and not have to actually install any physical hardware. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there around using those types of technology. What it does from a fleet operator perspective is it means that they have instant access to the information, but also it's real information. So if you have an accident, there's lots of companies, very successful companies, who analyze accidents based on the accelerometer. With our system, you'll have all of that information, but rather than getting a 12 or 13-page report, which is just very detailed analysis, you'll actually have the video footage, which cuts out all of that. And obviously, it's instant as well. So that's where we see the kind of the future in being able to read far more information and far more detailed information that's relevant from, say, traditional telematics and that. And we're seeing it across all areas that people are now, when they see our system and see our solution, they can see the instant value that they're getting. So we have a number of case studies where companies who would have used traditional telematics to very heavily monitor their fleet and trying to really optimize their performance are now seeing that they're getting another 5, 10, 15% overall savings from our solution. So that's one side of the industry. On the other side then, there's far more regulations coming in. So we've built in a lot of the compliance and a lot of back-end support which ties all of the systems together. So traditionally, again, someone may have 5 or 6 different systems that they would use, and they're trying to collate information from all of those systems to produce a report in the event of an accident. We can instantly combine all the information from their compliance, their vehicle maintenance records, their driver records in terms of training, and plus all your traditional telematics, plus your video, and plus any ADAS information we have, and produce into an instant report that can be sent to an insurance company, a fleet manager, or whatever needs to happen on it. So there's the opportunity, and I suppose why we're different than everybody else. There's really only one other company that's kind of doing anything similar to ourselves, and that's a company in the US called Samsara. They've been trading for 3 to 4 years, just got a valuation of 3.6 billion, and they're probably the first company that's shown any kind of innovation within this industry for the last 10 years. So we're quite keen from our side to launch into the US market. They have sold or tried to sell into a number of customers into the UK market, and we've won deals against them purely on the basis of our functionality and also, I suppose, our industry expertise, because we previously sold the business within this industry. So we think our product favours very, very well technically and against their product as well.
Thank you. And Gary, for you, so what great companies are you seeing in your pipeline that could be potential for Sure Valley?
Yeah, I suppose as an accelerator, all the companies we invest in are inevitably at the frontier of their field. So we're always looking for those tipping points where an industry or market is going to change. And for the last couple of years, we've seen the founders pushing into a market and having to educate the market, and now we've absolutely seen a flip where there's real pull coming from industries. Right across from healthcare through to agriculture, where the market is now educated. They understand the potential and benefit of IoT for their industry, and they're actively looking for solutions. And that's really a great time for any investor to get involved in the opportunities. Just to give you some of the examples, the range of ventures we come across. I was out in the Middle East last week with our accelerator out there, and we've invested in a company that's using drones, but more importantly AI and vision technology to, their initial pilot is with 1 million palm trees, an area I never knew before it was an opportunity, to fertilize for dates and also to look for disease for a crop that's critical to a particular economy. In the west of Ireland in Galway, one of our companies is working with oil distribution companies to connect their oil tanks, their consumer base to the distribution company. There's a logistics play, but more importantly, there's a customer experience play as well. In Waterford, again in the ag tech space, we're investing in a company that has a smart collar for cattle, and it's all about bringing data to make the rearing of cattle far more precision-based than it has. And in Dublin, we're investing in a company called Horace, which is audio diagnostics for heavy plant machinery. So they have customers like BAM who are building big hospitals, big industrial complex, and they're using audio to predict when machinery is going to fail, because the overhead around SLAs is significant if they have to react after the event rather than deal with it before the event.
Thank you. So I'd like to open the floor to questions. So is there anyone in the audience that has any questions for any of the panelists?
So what is our business model? So Select Evidence, our application, is software as a service, so it's a recurring revenue. And we license, one license of our application takes care of one medical device model through its life cycle.
Any more? Yeah.
Directed towards anyone, challenges in the field.
Yeah.
See challenges next time. Technical, non-technical.
Yeah, so I could talk about challenges that we had and like how we're fixing them. So what we noticed certainly when it comes to corporates, and you speak to them about the IoT and you show them a software platform, they want everything. So it goes back to my point before of one component on its own doesn't solve a problem. So that's one of the challenges that we've been working on very hard as to how do we turn from being just a software company, which is what we started at, to being this whole end-to-end provider with this professional services arm that's built around our whole core product. So that's certainly been a really big challenge, but one that we've enjoyed quite a lot. And now that we're able to control each part of the ecosystem, it's made it less challenging on us because we can make sure that we're able to provide the experience that we want to and that they want to receive as well.
Within the medical device industry, we're forecasting some major challenges, particularly around IoT security. Currently, Novalia work with all of the top 10, top 20 medical device manufacturers, but we do see a major challenge for the small to medium enterprise 1 to 2 product companies that don't have the resources. So to overcome that challenge, we're actually just embarking on an even extra expert system to help companies like that along the way.
Yeah, I think from our perspective, probably our biggest challenge is the mobile operators and their perception of the IoT market. A lot of them seem to think that devices are, transmitting very small pieces of information at maybe a few times a day or whatever. And when you look at the likes of our system, we're constantly transmitting data back every 10 seconds. And in some cases, that's video footage as well. Which is obviously heavy usage, and obviously we use 4G in that, but sometimes that can still be quite challenging, and the network infrastructure is not quite what they may think it is at the moment.
Yeah, from what we see is that the technology risk is falling away, and it's now moving into more traditional risk around enterprise sales and that management of multiple stakeholders in deployment as well.
All right. Yeah, to Gary. I'm curious as to how you chose the cities outside Dublin. Why not Cork or Limerick? And can you talk a little bit more about the regional, where the sort of medtech focus is, where the ag tech focus is in Ireland? And are you getting your leads out of the universities like UCC?
We always viewed ourselves as an investor on a national basis, but our deal was we invest in you, but you have to come to Dublin. And when you're looking for the very best, you want to make sure that you're not missing out on anybody. So we started to look at the regional clusters that we're developing, and we could see clusters of talent and clusters of industries that for many reasons would not come to Dublin. So it was really about, well, we're going to go where the talent is. Galway, it's a particularly creative area. It's got a very strong medtech base already. So you have some existing unfair advantages in around, particularly the medtech connectivity. There's a lot of multinationals based down there. In Waterford, it was co-located on one of the university campuses, had a very strong telecoms base, had an emerging AOR and AgTech, and we wanted to leverage those types of relationships as well.
Hi, thank you. In terms of the business model, you mentioned before that, for example, you price on a SaaS basis. Do you see that as the market matures, the market will price as a SaaS, or do you see it more as they're going to charge on a per cost reduction basis? Obviously, Samsara is an interesting company. They're subsidizing, well, you know, the hardware has been priced quite at a low price, and then they're making the money on the SaaS. But as a IoT, there's a big hardware component. So yeah, I would like to understand that.
From just our experiences that we see, you don't really want to get into the hardware. You want to leverage the commodity of hardware that's out there, and then your value has to be in the software, and that's where you can be creative around your pricing.
Yeah, I think within the transportation, there is a tradition there of paying monthly fees for access to your platform and access to the data. So I think that model will continue rather than, you know, cost reductions can be quite arbitrary and sometimes difficult to evaluate. And a number of telematics companies has previously tried to bring in models whereby they will take a percentage of the savings, but they've never really worked because invariably they end up in a row with the customer over how much they've actually saved.
Time for one more, if there is one more. Yes?
Leaving aside your own companies, what do you see as the best applications so far that you've come across, ignoring your own companies?
Okay, can you repeat the question up there? I think the question was, what's the best application you've come across outside of your own company?
Yeah, as I said, I think Samsara have been the very first company that have shown any innovation into the transportation industry. I think they've positioned their product very, very well. And I think they're doing a really good job of promoting it. And from our perspective, it's a massive opportunity because they're promoting the industry that we're hoping to take advantage of as well.
I guess from the healthcare industry's perspective, you know, we're in the start of a growth curve here. I think there's a lot more to happen. We're going to see a lot more innovation in the industry from, you know, not just implantable medical devices, but smart beds, smart pills. I think we're going to see a lot of major changes and shift-ups in the industry over the next few years.
Yeah, kind of two parts to this. So first off, there's another company that is actually based in our office. Just to go back to cows, they do facial recognition for cows, which I didn't know was possible. I haven't tried it for obvious reasons, but yeah, they're a fascinating company, and they're doing a lot of business in the US and growing like crazy, which isn't a good thing for us because they're taking up all the office space that we're trying to get to. The other thing that really interests me about this is like just to look at obviously the bigger companies. If we look at Apple, recently people have been talking about Apple and the declining iPhone sales, and is this the end of their time? It's the absolute obvious. The opposite. Sorry. What you're going to see with Apple is Apple will become the biggest healthcare company in the world by far, and that's why you're seeing a lot of innovation around the Apple Watch, even the AirPods. You know, there's rumors that they're going to have heart rate sensors and everything in them, because even simple little sensors like that tell you a huge amount of information. They let you know things like how well people are sleeping, how active they are, what different things that they are doing during the day, do they exercise, and all of that then feeds into some sort of healthcare policy, which is then they're able to become the key component of and link with lots of different providers from. So that's one of the things I would really watch over the next short while is healthcare. It's ripe for a massive change, and it's just around the corner.
Yeah, one that we've seen just out of our recent experience in the Middle East is, and it's a real near-term opportunity, is the oil and gas industry. So we're seeing a huge amount of ideas being presented to us around driving efficiencies in the oil and gas industry, and the pull from the market is coming from the C-level in those industries that really need to transform how their businesses operate. And then you need that local flavour to it to actually take those opportunities as well.